Hello, everybody. Hope you are doing well. Uh, Welcome to this webinar series. This is the second part of the webinar series, which is specifically focusing on ISO 14224 and ISO 81346. Last time, we had an opportunity to introduce this topic, and we also had an opportunity wherein we discussed a couple of things. What is ISO 81346? What is the RDS structure, and how this particular structure is useful when it comes to SAP's asset performance management, when it comes to the entire EAM portfolio. This is what we have discussed. So, to continue the discussion further and to do a deep dive of this topic, we are going to have a couple of guests on this webinar, as well as we are also lining up with some other sessions as well, where we'll bring in experts from around the world who have implemented this standard and who have realized the benefits of it. So to welcome onto the stage, let me add Anders. Anders, welcome. Welcome to the series number 2, part 2 of this series.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure and great honor. Looking forward to continuing these talking points.
Thank you. Let me also add Ram Bhaskar. So Ram Bhaskar is from the PM and the EAM expertise perspective, and Anders from RDS 81346 expertise perspective. So we have both the perspectives of plant maintenance or the EAM solution. Now, to take this thing forward, let me just see how many of the other people have joined here. I see there are few that have joined from Portugal. Okay, welcome from Portugal. And I see there are others also joining now. So wherever you are joining from, please specify your name and also the location from where you are joining. Probably it is good evening or good morning or good day to everybody. So the first thing is, why are we actually discussing this topic, which is ISO 14224 as well as ISO 81346, and why this whole conversation matters? So let me ask this question to Ram Bhaskar. Why do you think that this conversation matters? Is the change in SAP landscape, or is the change in the entire enterprise asset management portfolio? So what is it, Ram? If you can highlight that.
Sure, sure, Dr. Imad. See, just to focus on where we left on the recap of trying to organize ISO 14224 and trying to talk about how does 81346 complements and supplements it in an organic growth perspective into an APM landscape. I would like to take a couple of steps in order to understand where from the entire standards and mechanism falls into play, and that is what we are trying to assign and address it today by understanding what is the poor data quality is all about, how do we address the poor data quality, what is the importance of data when it comes to plant maintenance, enterprise asset management, life cycle management, and even into reliability engineering going forward. And the way from a process management perspective also, if you look at it, we talk about always industry 4.0, 5.0, and it typically overlaps into the way maintenance also has also evolved with industrial upgradation, wherein we are still in the maintenance 4.0 cycles, wherein we are talking about various standards being adopted because they are important for us to take it forward. And with that, we wanted to focus on all these two couple of standards, which are very important for augmenting maintenance practices, philosophies, policies, and then take it into onto the landscape of SAP, predominantly, or any other ERP mechanism for that matter of fact. This becomes a kind of a backbone, right? With that, let's continue with our combination of slide information wherein we are trying to address what is the poor data quality, what is the importance of it on a plant maintenance. It impacts your day downtime. It is totally reactive in nature. When it comes to poor data, it impacts your overall augmentation of maintenance. And definitely, yes, when it comes to resource allocation, you talk about what are the other allied processes which are getting impacted with that, is predominantly seen over a period of time on the top line as well as bottom line on the industry, right? So with this, which has been understood very well with the industry experts and also the business leaders, we talk about why PiLog and what is the impact of PiLog before and after in terms of standards, in terms of how do you look at reliability as a kind of a benchmark, as a mool mantra, what we call from an industry expert's perspective, that how do you look at the aging assets? How do you typically look at your old operating models? How do you transform yourself, right, from the outages? Basically, nobody can say that, okay, there will be an outage, right? It is like living in fear when death will arrive. That is a kind of model wherein maintenance and operations cannot live with, because there are a lot of things which are linked to it. So with that comes, what we have seen with that is why this happens is basically they don't have the proper data, the proper augmentation of data in order to understand the failure causes, the effects, the impacts, where it is coming from, how it is coming from. And basically, this typically comes from that operations and maintenance activities are at times disconnected, right? What happens in operations is not known to maintenance to take a preventive measure rather than a corrective measure. That was the old school thought. And then what came in with the leadership of Pilogs and likes companies, wherein they have talked about importance of data and the maturity of data, which is has to be taken in from aligning with ISO standard, bringing in the smart maintenance concepts, wherein data and standards blend with the records will help you to make your agile and autonomous maintenance, which is the framework for future, make it predictive to, you call it predictive, even prescriptive maintenance for the future augmentation of data. How do you bring in technology? How you pool the data even for AI and counterparts of IoTs to work on that, right? It is all data driven. So that is where Pilog is actually impacting the business processes and the way the lookout of the business is, right? Having said that, we take to the journey of the PiLog solutions, right, little bit, to talk about how the PiLog with the embedded standards, embedded policies and procedures, right from identifying of sources in the initial structured or unstructured way, digitization of the data comes in, wherein you are trying to extract or migrate the data, right? Wherein we say that, okay, now I've extracted the data, I have to convert it, I have to do the smart management of the data. It comes from the overall process wherein we are using autonomous AI principles to convert and map it. With that comes to the data quality management. This is where the blending of standards starts, right? Because you have taken a reflection of ASIS, now you are applying the standards, which are in form of templates, which are in form of your guidelines, and there we try to reflect what is your ASIS, what is the industry benchmark, what are the gaps in terms of the value leaks from the data front. When I am saying data, it is not just the master data in terms of the definition of the asset and the classes and the characteristics, but also it extends into the metadata management, which is very, very important and critical for business controls, right? All these things happens in the DQG layer of the DQGS suite, which is data quality and governance suite. And once this has been done, you know the roadmap. What is the roadmap? Nobody comes with magic wand to typically say that, okay, I will transform it overnight, right? So there is a
Mhm.
maturity roadmap which has been kept depending upon the criticality of assets. How do you take it? What do you take it? And this data is even injected to various performance elements of your operational maintenance activities, which we call it in an SAP jargon perspective as an SAP PM or EAM, which can reside in ECC as well as S4. But when you look at moving forward, the way forward lookout is on the asset performance. There also the data standards are set from this tool, which is interlocked with iContent Foundry, which is a rich repository of more than 30 million records and which grows every day. I would say every day, because there are a lot of engineers working on it, on the journey of data modulation, data availability from various OEMs, OPMs, and this works very in conjunction with even when we talk about the BNAC journey of SAP, right, wherein we are talking about asset collaboration, onboarding of the customer, and even look at EPCs. They bring in new technology, they bring in
Yeah.
new flavors to the industry. So how that adoption happens seamlessly with a non-compliance data, with a compliance data, that all modeling happens from the data quality management in synchronization with iContent Foundry. This is the beauty of the product which we are tabling it for the customers. And with this comes the overall governance, right? How do you govern it on an ongoing basis? How do you make it a
Mm.
governance quality record? And with this
Yeah.
comes finally the consumer system with all the golden rules built in into the governance, saying that who is my consumer, what kind of data set he needs, when it is needed, how it is needed, right? So to talk about having the right data at right time in right quality and right quantity is what is being delivered with this data governance solution across all the solutions which are getting interconnected. So it becomes really a single platform of truth. And with this 2 cents, I will pass it back to you before we jump onto the standards on in remarks on the notations, what the industry is looking at, why the standards and why a solution even. A couple of comments from you both.
Anders, if you can take that from your experience perspective, how do you see this change changing the entire landscape?
So, what I approach this very much from the information side. So I come to this. I've ended up working with these standards and so on, working with actually the information. And one, I mean, challenge is really that the information is data set in a context, right? So what is the context and how do we, the context is constantly evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And the what's very interesting now is that we have a newfound, so to speak, interest in actually looking at these contexts. And what the standards will provide is the framework for understanding the context and making the data available in the right context. So, for instance, formatting the data in such a way that all of these beautiful tools that we have can work efficiently and provide us with the insights we need. Right. So it's actually a matter of understanding the context and framing the context, so to speak, in order to really push the data towards the right usage of it. So yeah, that's
Okay.
basically my
So,
take on it.
Thank you,
yeah,
Anders.
thank you. Just from 14224 perspective, Ram can maybe talk for hours or days, but I think from 81346 perspective, Anders, you would be able to do the same thing from your side. But why do you think that 14224 is not enough for that entire asset management? So if you can probably bring that point
Sure,
of
sure.
view, your side,
Sure.
Anders, if that would be good. So I would like to actually create a debate between 14224 and 81346, and at the end probably we might blend. But let's just understand why, Anders, do you think that 14224 is not enough?
Well, as I said, it comes back or comes down to the context, and the context for 14224 was initially reliability and maintenance data for the purpose of supporting the operations of maintenance, the activities of maintenance. And as asset management has kind of matured and evolved into encompassing other parts of the asset management practices, operations, renewal, strategic planning, and whatnot, the context for which the information needs to be used has changed. And thus, we need to add to the 14224, to the great framework of 14224, to enable these other activities, right? So that's really, it's not a matter of replacement or anything like this. It's just that we've added value streams that are important when starting to look at asset management from only looking at maintenance. So that's really the key driving factor.
So, Anders, you said a very, very bold statement. I just want to reiterate that you are saying that 14224 probably is not enough. However, 81346 is not the replacement of 14224, because that's what probably we wanted to clarify as well. So I'm emphasizing again that 14224 and 81346, they complement and supplement each other from different use cases, right, Anders?
Completely. So in 14224, you will have great. It relies actually on several cores, but two of them are the classification as known by this pyramid, and so the taxonomy, and also the idea of boundary description. So what is the asset that you're looking at? What kind of asset is it?
Yeah.
Is it the pump? Is it a combustion engine? What is it? And what are the boundaries around that that object? And given those boundaries, you can do your classification. You can produce excellent reliability and maintenance data. But what has changed now is the view on the boundaries themselves. So the boundaries defined in 14224 are boundaries set for maintenance.
Yeah.
But as we know, asset management, the various views on what you will use your asset for will change your views on your boundaries. So we now need to also open for other boundaries than maintenance boundaries, and that is what 81346 is for. So if you actually take the next slide, where
before going there, I
Yeah,
just
I'm
want
sorry.
to get a confirmation from Ram that, Ram, are you happy that 14224 is not going to be replaced by 81346? How much that particular statement comforts those practitioners of 14224?
Absolutely, yes. As we were talking about, the initial conversation also started with the maintenance journey and as well as industry journey.
Okay.
To look
Okay.
upon
So
from an organization perspective. Sorry, can you hear me?
no, there
I'm sorry.
was probably a few seconds of delay or
Okay.
drop off, but okay. So
So
maybe let me shoot that. You know, if you would like to reintroduce, because we have spoken about RDS 81346 and us, but if you have to reintroduce RDS 81346, how would you do that? And can you just elaborate a little bit more and maybe a little bit deeper? Because
Yeah.
maybe every part we might have this question as common, because there might be somebody who is just watching it from the second part itself. That's the reason. If you can kindly introduce RDS 81346 again.
Right. So 81346 is a series that has sprung from the need of creating references to physical or virtual entities in the information. So in drawings, for instance, in particular, that's what it was made for initially. And thus, it's a whole framework of rules and grammar and classes and namings and whatnot, in order to make very specific but also full context references to objects. And these references will be codes that contain the whole architecture for your assets. And there's nothing new about that in particular, but what's interesting in 81346 is that it allows you to create various views, various hierarchies, various breakdowns that will cater to the needs of different stakeholders. So not only the ones interested in maintenance. And that's really the key thing within this discussion, is that 81346 will actually enable you to extend the use for your maintenance and reliability data. So it's actually not at all a competitor to 14224. It's an enabler. So that's really the key issue. And if you look at the following slide, we have this the idea that we can make models. The text is a bit concatenated here for some reason, but we have many stakeholders in the asset management practices, not only maintenance, and all of these rely on the foundation being the asset information. And what 81346 can do is that it can model this information so that it caters to the needs of all asset management stakeholders, and that's really the key. And so it is built. If you remember the difference or the challenges with 14224 is that the boundary definition is made for maintenance. But if you want to expand your boundaries or change your boundaries, then how would you do that? Well, you would look at a framework of practices for doing just that. And that is what RDS and 81346 is. It's built on defining boundaries. That's what it's for. It's made for that. It also has unlimited complexity, so you can go as deep or as shallowly as you like. There are no fixed levels, which enables you to describe both simple assets and very complicated assets. And it doesn't really care. So you can go as complex or as simplistically as you'd like. But all designations will give you a full context. And this full context will, if we look back to the schematics, the flows you showed for the DQGS, it's the full context. Each part of information will carry its full context and thus be very, very useful for all sorts of automations or flow information flows that you would like to build up in order to serve all information stakeholders or parties with relevant information, right? So it's a powerful tool which enables you to describe your assets both as what they do or why they exist, typically functional breakdowns. Those are great for operations, FMEA, risk management, and so on. But you can also describe your assets as what they are, what they consist of. This is great for maintenance and for procurement and for finance. You can also describe your objects as where they are located, the locational context that they are in. Who isn't interested in that? That really supports all asset management activities, actually knowing where stuff are and what things are kind of located in the same room. You might be interested in what happens if the room floods, right? You could do analysis on it. And then you can look at the and type, and all of these aspects, as they are called in 81346, will
Yeah.
tell you a full story about your asset. And that's really what's new. You will add this storytelling to your assets, and thus your reliability and maintenance data from 14224 suddenly becomes alive, right?
Mm.
So that's really that's the key. That's how 81346 expands the view on your assets and their information.
Yeah, that's a great articulation of it, and especially this slide. If audience are watching it, it's great thing. Well, first of all, what is that object and what it does, where is it located, and what type of object it is, what it consists of. So all that information is actually compelling through 81346 standard, and that's the view that it brings. So there are many stakeholders that they can see from that particular aspect of it, from maintenance, from procurement, from operations, from the risk management, from the planning perspective of it, you would be able to do that. And that's how it has structure, not only structure, but also I think it also helps you document that entire asset that way. So it's not just talking about the structure, but also the documentation. Now, Anders and Ram, if we consider that, okay, these two are real, 14224 and 81346, these are the two real standards and the practices that must coexist, that must complement, and that must supplement each other when it comes to the asset management and its practices and solutions of it. How do we make this thing real? Ram, how do we make this thing real? And then maybe Anders, you can add to it whatever Ram's perspective is.
See, from a perspective of ISO 14224, as Anders was talking about rightly from the analysis, it is for the general operation and maintenance, wherein the focus is more on the physical assets which are there, and then driven down to the way an object, a technical object, has to be maintained effectively in terms of the operation and maintenance from planning perspective, task list perspective, how do you typically strategize it, and strategize it also is a static data again, because
Yeah,
strategies are typically coming from your performance management, which actually is driving it. So if you look at that perspective, again, this is static information which comes in, which doesn't have control on operation and maintenance, and you typically evolve the operation. That is basically a tactical kind of data management is what is done with ISO 14224. And definitely, yes, when asset has to be performance driven, performance analyzed, reliability driven, risk aversive, right? All those things, as Anders was talking about, that we need to have that view, different views of it from a location, function, and the product perspective. That is mostly important for us, which we blend into the tool, wherein there is a cross mapping done for each object, right? That's a starting step. You have put some foundation of 14224. Over that, you want to bring in the performance management. That is where 81346 cross-reference mapping has to be can be done seamlessly, leveraging even PiLog DQG suite, which we are seeing in the example now, with a decomposition model, wherein both can coexist, complement, supplement, and enhance the business processes. That's my take on the whole scenario. And as your comments on this, please.
Yes, I completely agree. So it's important also to and we will talk about that a little bit further down, but it's you can also start at a small scale. So right,
mhm,
you don't need necessarily to
Absolutely.
expand all your trees tomorrow, right? So you can prioritize and do the things you need first in order to be successful in your short term. But you can look at the possibilities with 81346 as a foundation for future success also, and grow with it. With that said, it's really not. I mean, especially so. First of all, the standard itself is not that difficult. It takes a little bit time, kind of, to get started, but it goes pretty quick. But if you have great tools, it works even faster. And with these with both the libraries that you can provide and the tools for managing the data, it's really not that big of a step to conquer.
Great.
Okay.
That's where,
Yeah,
Dr. Imad,
please.
if you look at it from a perspective that it's like taking the steps of critical, non-critical, semi-critical, and taking it forward, it becomes easier to build also. That's what Anders is talking about, that ISO 14224 looks at the entire holistic list. When it comes to asset performance, the focus is on the critical assets and semi-critical, and you move forward. And this is definitely the beauty of adopting two standards together, wherein you can get the operational sanity with on 14224, which looks at holistically, and 81346 is basically bringing the icing on the cake kind of model.
Okay.
Thanks.
And do you, I mean, what do you suggest? Do we have to start from scratch for these things, or are these models pre-built as add-ons?
So, Anders, you want to pick it up first?
Yeah, sure. No, so yeah, it's you need to build a little bit of a capability on your own to kind of understand what you want to achieve. When you've
Mm-hmm.
done that, which isn't, I mean, that's not too far. When you've done that, it's a pretty straightforward way. So from that on, you will know basically the steps you will need to take, and you can start very small with just adding RDS to your current setup, and by growing into it, you can learn it and learn what you can and what you can't do, and what advantages you will have, and by learning, you will also see the advantages you will get for your specific assets and your specific asset management practices. And thus it's really a kind of a landscape to evolve within. It's very
Okay.
convenient.
Ram, from the 14224 perspective, do we have all those reliability structures for the complex assets available as add-ons?
Yes, we do have from a repository and product management perspective. But having said that, it is all as Anders was talking about, like all the assets doesn't go through the asset performance reliability engineering models, right? We do
Yeah.
go with the critical assets, and for those critical assets, which can be industry agnostic or specific, that's what you're seeing it in the slide also. That you, when you look at the industrial system, it has to be cohesive to your production environment, what you want to put it. And that is very important for us to take it forward. Like, for instance, this wind turbine is taken as a very critical asset from the overall organization perspective, and we have taken it and modeled it. Similarly, all the critical assets for any class of industries, which is asset centric, we can support it. Thanks.
Okay. There's a great question here from Mr. Fawaz. Technical compatibility of the platform in case we use the standard specifications of the DIN system. Ram, would you like to take that? And then
Uh,
Andrew can supplement it.
Technical capability of the platform in case the standard specifications. Can you read that? Probably I'm missing that.
Yeah, in
Can you
case we
repeat
use the
that, please?
standard specifications of now, let's suppose that they have the DIN,
Ah,
standards
right,
that are
right,
used,
right,
and
right.
in that case, how technically this platform is compatible.
So DIN systems or specifications definitely can be taken because it is reflecting your class and characteristics of an asset. This takes way beyond it, okay? And you can have the DIN specification or systems in your system of records, and this can be taken over and above that. That's where the standards augmentation can come in. Like, for instance, DINs, and probably if you have different asset classes for that, different standards will be used. But all this amalgamation of standards can happen as a journey for your asset performance management with this inclusion. Anders, you want to support it?
No,
Okay.
no, yeah, I don't have anything necessarily to add to that. Yeah, you and adding as many. You need as many views as make as you need to make you to excel in your operations. So I mean, can you add more? That's great, and the platform enables that. That's great.
Right.
Thank you. Now, what we have discussed in the two parts of our webinar series is a lot of principles, lot of theory, you know, how the structure is framed, what is the use of it, how an object is defined, what are the different aspects of it, and from a 1424 perspective, how those 9 level hierarchy is set up, and how each of these standards complements and supplements when they are brought together, all those things that we have looked at it. But now, from a looking up from a perspective of practicality of it, from the practice of it, are we going to see now some of the demonstrations of it, some of the use cases, or some of the case studies of it? Is that we are planning in the next webinars, gentlemen? Anders?
Yes. So in next session, we will do a twofold. Let's call it a demonstration, but it's a twofold case study. First, we will expand on a full-fledged, full-story RDS setup,
Mm-hmm.
where we will explore a virtual case and look at when you have all of this full context, how can you use that? How could you make use of this full context in your asset management activities?
Mm-hmm.
So that's part one. And part two of that same webinar is we will have a guest from Uniper Hydropower in Sweden, who will show how they got started with this. And I think it's an interesting case because they are. Um, I can't divulge too much without them doing it, but
Okay.
let's put it this way: they are not in S4 HANA as of right now, and still they are still doing this. So
Okay.
how are they going about? Well, it's about starting at the small scale. So they are getting started ahead of what's coming, actually. So that's
Okay.
it's very interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. And probably maybe we can leave the message that in the upcoming webinars, we are going to see the practice in action uh, from the perspective of the entire RDS use case simulation is one. And then also Juniper hydropower from Sweden. How are they using, or how did they utilize the 81346, and how did they deploy it in their environment, and what are the benefits that they have got out of it? And that would be wonderful, wonderful to hear from them, because what do we need? I mean, when there is a new standard, when there is something that um, becomes a practice, we would like to see the real value coming out of that particular practice. So it's principles to practice is something that will go live probably in next 4 to 5 weeks, and then we can connect all the dots between a theory to a practical use case. So there have been several other comments, but most of them are addressed. That's why I'm not going through. But all the audience, thank you very much for joining in. And this was the second part of our webinar series, which is on ISO 14224 as well as ISO 81346, and which is something that is needed to build the foundation if you would like to achieve the excellence in asset management. So with that, I would like to thank um, both of you for your time, and very soon we'll connect back again, and then we will dive into the practicalities of it. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time, and thank you all the audience. Whoever have joined, even out of their time zones. Thank you.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you
gentlemen.
so much. Have a good evening.